Hello everybody. Welcome back to the 25th TouchDesigner Roundtable Berlin. I'm very happy to see so many of you here at the beautiful Sprehalle. Thanks a lot to Anthony who invited us here in our quest for the nicest locations of Berlin. Today is a bit special because we're looking at the music side of TouchDesigner, beginning with an introduction about the Sprehalle from Anthony, who's also doing a lot of music events. Then we're going to hear from Bitwig, who just released a new version of Bitwig Studio. And one of the reasons why they're here at the TouchDesigner Roundtable is that there's a new set of components called TDBitwig that's about to be released. And we're going to hear from Jared and from Mark, who've been involved into the programming of these components. And they're going to explain how these components can be used to connect Bitwig and TouchDesigner to make even better audiovisual performances. But before we dive into that, I have to make what we call a bit of shameless self-advertising. Because you know that maybe you know that the NodeInstitute organizes not only user meetups but also courses for VVV and TouchDesigner. And we just finished the summer season, which was quite successful. We went in quite a risk, to be honest, and we didn't die. So which encouraged us to start with the winter season for TouchDesigner and for VVV. I'm gonna spare you with the VVV stuff. Not relevant here, but yeah, we've got exciting stuff coming up with TouchDesigner. So we're going to have the beginners course, which is going to start on the 17th of October. 12 sessions led by Nima Ghazistani, who we had over 60 participants last year, and they were all pretty happy, I think. So he's doing it really nicely, and this is your best way to get started with TouchDesigner. In addition, we offer a certification. So if you pass the beginner's course, you can book additional 3 modules in which we work with you on an assignment. If the assignment is fulfilled in a good way, there will be a NodeInstitute TouchDesigner certification, which of course opens doors all over the world. But today I'm super excited that we can present the new TD Intermediates, which is 16 sessions weekly, and they start on the October 18th. Before we dive into them, I would also like to mention that we started something new, which is called the TD Creative Masterclasses. One is, and they're less, I mean the other courses are very much about teaching technical skills, and these masterclasses are a bit more about how do you actually use those skills. So they're more like a design school course, and the first one we just started with lots of participants is content creation for immersive art spaces, which we do in collaboration with the Bright Festival and the Kunstkraftwerk Leipzig, which is an immersive projection space. So participants in the end will be able to see their creations in an actual projection space. And we've got one coming up, which is not released yet, but if you scroll down a bit further, that's the one we're most excited about. No, further down. This one is generative choreography, led by Diana Serbanescu and Helene Ulas. Diana Serbanescu doesn't only hold a PhD or a master in computer science, but she's also a performer and dancer. In this course, and Helene Ulas is a media artist, and together they're gonna guide the participants through different exercises, transferring a theory of collaborative performance, which comes from the stage, into the realm of media art. And we're super excited about this because this brings 2 very interesting fields together and tries a crossover, and they're 2 super smart and talented women, and watch out for this one. But now let's jump to the intermediates. Okay. Maybe you shouldn't say that loudly. It should actually be open. Give me a second. It's because he's not logged in. Okay, then let's make this even more spannend and talk about this in the next break. Sorry, but I don't know my password by brain and have to find it on my other computer, which gives me now the honor to introduce Anthony DUNPHY to you, who's with the Sprehalle, and who's going to tell us more about this exciting place, the festival that just ended a few days ago. I'm very happy that you're hosting us here. Thank you very much.
Hello. Can you see my laptop? Good. Okay, hello. Thank you everyone for coming. And I am working here with Y Music. We own this hall. It's like a performance space that we also use for pre-production. So Y Music is like an agency with a lot of like artists. We work on smaller kind of theater stuff, installations, stuff like that. I'm from Ireland, and so is this guy here, and so I got into TouchDesigner in Ireland a couple of years ago, and I was kind of on and off using it a little bit, but then when I came to Berlin and I started working with this company, I got super into it, and I'm going to actually just show a project that we did here in this hall. It's called Oumuamua, and it's a crazy one. So this is it. It basically is all of these epoxy sheets were hung from the ceiling, and then we had like multiple projectors set up, and there was like a 360 IKO speaker in the middle. It sounded crazy, but I want to talk about the project in like 3 sections. So sound and interactivity, and then show control. So the center speaker for this project was by Mark Sinan, who's also an artist with Y Music. It would look like this. And this speaker is from Garrett Sharma. I don't know, he works in Funkhouse and Cali's. I don't know if anyone knows him, but it's like this 20 speaker setup. Like, I think there's 6-inch drivers, and you can, if it's in the middle of the room, and he has a plug-in on, I think he uses Reaper, and you can like position sound wherever you want on this plug-in around the room. So for the project, we sent audio from Ableton to his plug-in, and we could position sound like this 3D spatial sound. It was mainly for playback, and this is kind of, I don't know if you can see it. Turn off the light, you might see it better, but in the middle of the room here, if my mouse will go, you can't see it. Yeah, there's the IKO, and then there's 3 projectors set up, and also on the floor there was like interactive platforms that were built by Florian Goyce was his name, and they're like this. And when you stand on them, they had a max MSP patch that we could take into Ableton, and then from there you could like detect if someone was like standing on it or like fast triggers. And that's kind of how I got to use TouchDesigner, because I had Resolume running, and then I had TouchDesigner for Lights, and then I was also taking like cues like MIDI from Ableton, so I needed like a way to like build like control of this. So I'm going to see if I can open the TouchDesigner project without breaking my PC. 1 second. I don't know. Okay, so basically, this is like the GUI on like the top level. So I can cue all of the lighting scenes through here, but this also changed like the columns in Resolume were like OSC commands. And if I go into the project, here's the lighting control. So it's just like a Python class like this. And then all of the scenes are here. And I just, at the top level, you just switch through each scene. And that also changed Resolume, the columns, and did like fades, all of that stuff. And then if I go up a level here, it's just a column selector like this here. And maybe I can also show you this. My PC is going crazy. Desktop. If this will play. 1 second. So when it was running, you just cycle through, and then the columns in Resolume would all change, and all of the lighting scenes would change. So that's kind of how it got into TouchDesigner at the start, and then I went to all of these roundtables, and I was like, how do I learn more about this shit, because it's crazy. So that was how I first started doing it. And then I went to the last meetup in Monopol, I think it was 2 months ago, and then I met this guy, Daniel, and he was doing this like insane stuff with moving heads and projectors that I kind of wanted to get back into, that I had also done something similar, if it will play. So one project I want to work on is where I've got like a moving head that's like this, and it will scan a wall, but I've also got a projector on the floor, and I'm trying to like tie in projections with like moving heads. So this is something I'm trying to do. Tie them together. This is another video like this. So the head like scans around, and then the light and the colors between the visuals and the moving head are linked. And there's another one like that. It like hits the wall. So that's something I'm working on at the moment. If it will work, it's a lot of work to do. But yeah, so I would just like to thank Stefan for coming here and doing this, and hopefully we can do more fun stuff. And this is my Instagram. And I hope everyone drinks beer. I can't stretch it out any longer. I tried my best. So if anyone has any questions, it's all cool. If not, that's okay.
Can you tell us a tiny bit more about the Sprehalle?
Yeah, so the Sprehalle it's owned by Y Music, but it's available to be booked by anyone who wants to use it. It's mainly for smaller performances, and pre-production would be a lot. This week I worked with like a lighting designer, and like that's why all the trusses are like moved like crazy. A lot of times people come in and use it for maybe testing the rig, or smaller shows as well is what people use it for. But last week we had a festival. It was called Pantopia. The signs are also up there. So Y Music puts on like every couple of months like this Pantopia festival, and they book like different artists and also have installations. So if you follow Y Music on Instagram also, you can keep up with that. But the Sprehalle would be mainly used for that, and then private hires would be a lot of it, and then me also messing around in the hall.
Thank you, Anthony. Do we have any questions from the audience? Comments?
The Irish guy wants to ask a question.
How much further did you go? Oh yeah, excuse me. Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
how much further did you get with the moving head thing since talking to your man at the monopole thing?
I did a little bit more on it. My problem is when you hit like the wall, when you hit a wall, he had talked about it, Daniel, I need to talk to him again, but when like a circle hits a wall and it's not 90 degrees, it creates like a weird ellipse and you have to calculate that on the plane. And he went super into it the last time and then I forgot all of it. And I need to talk to him, but I need to learn how to calculate in 3D a plane. So when I find him, I will ask him, and then I will work further on this project. But I want to do that more of that.
Fair.
But not much is the answer.
Yep. It's an interesting idea anyway, because you can do it with lasers too, but it's a different,
really? Okay.
it's a different aesthetic. Of course, like the moving head's kind of more blurry and kind of warmer. Thanks.
Thank you.
But I remember that at the official meetup at Monopol, Daniel Dalfofo was speaking about this problem of how to map moving heads, right?
It's difficult. He had thought of a way. He told me it's tricky also. And then there's another issue I had when I was using the moving heads is it depends on the model you use, because some of them have like a digital iris and then some of them mechanical. And then if you're trying to do this movements where it's like zooming in and out, like it can get jaggedy, and then trying to offset that in TouchDesigner, like the mechanical lag can be tricky. So there's a lot of like little steps. But I would like to do like a really big installation, maybe with like one moving head like rigged from above with like projections on the floor. But it would be quite tricky. But that's something I want to work on. But it was cool when I went to the last meetup. The last time I went and met Daniel, it was like a really interesting topic that was really topical that I needed to learn more about. So this is why I like these meetups. So that's kind of why I reached out to Stefan, because it's cool to like support all these meetups. It's cool. There's so many people doing TouchDesigner, and I also am looking to hire freelancers who know TouchDesigner. So if anyone wants to email, let me know. Okay, cool. Talk to me afterwards. Okay, cool. Any questions? If not, it's all good.
I just say I have an algorithm which can control huge amount of moving heads in 3D by just putting two vectors in position.
Perfect.
Which I had done for Christopher Bauder with help of Markus Heckman.
Perfect.
2013.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm up for help.
I need help. I need that help. Perfect.
So
amazing. This is amazing. Thank you.
Nice. Connection made.
Yeah.
So do you have any other comments? Because if not, then I would jump in and continue my great presentation of the intermediates. Anthony, thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you.
It's great to be here. There it is. Without passwords. I'm not sure why the password is there. It was gone this afternoon. Yeah, the intermediates. So it's not going to be the same program as in the summer season. It's going to be different instructors with different courses, and we kind of decided to leave the things which don't get an update in the winter season in the summer season. There's still the recordings because there's some topics that might be interesting to people. But now let's talk about the new stuff. So we have 16 sessions. They happen weekly. They start in October 17th. And we have, first off, Torrin Blankensmith, who talks about motion tracking with MediaPipe, with the new plugin they've developed, which works out of the box on Mac and PC. And the trick is somehow that they make it all work in the browser. But so basically no hardware needed. It works right away with every webcam. And that is public and documented, but he's going to talk about, in the course, about creative uses for that. Second, I'll do my popular sequencing shows and installations, which is for, when you have to, for the first time, get your crazy TouchDesigner patch running in an organized matter with the next crazy TouchDesigner patch without making everything crash. And talking a bit how to use timers and yeah, kind of get control over your creations in a show environment. Then we're going to come to the next one, which is our popular introduction to GLSL 1 and 2. It's a 2-session one by Fanta, which yeah, takes you from nothing to knowing about GLSL in a very nice way. And then we're going to have Mickey van Olst, also a fellow at the NodeInstitute, and he just recently released Chain GPU, which is a specific kind of physics simulation, which is great for you know, simulating these kind of things, having different forces, having very organic behavior, and it's completely running on the GPU, so it's very performative. So this is the first of 2 sessions. This one is, you don't need to have like a huge GLSL knowledge to understand and to work with that. And he's going to introduce you into working with that. This is going to be followed up with a second session later, which builds on this one. I'm going to explain that when we come to that. Then we have Josef Peltz with Advanced GLSL 1 and 2. Not the same one as last season. This is going to be a new topic that takes GLSL further and looks into achieving incredible things with very little code. Then we're going to have the next session about Chain GPU by Mickey van Olst, where he is going into the creation of custom GLSL materials that couldn't be achieved otherwise, and how to use them in conjunction with Chain GPU to create things that weren't possible with TouchDesigner before, unless you were like a super hardcore GLSL super pro. And now it's a lot easier with Chain GPU. And you can try out Chain GPU, see how powerful it is, and then learn from the creator how to even customize it further for your projects. Then we're going to hear from Daniel Molnar, who's going to talk about interactive sensors and the processing of the values in TouchDesigner. So it's going to deal with Kinect, but also with how to use LiDAR scanners to track bigger areas and bigger movement of audiences, and how to process that data and combine this data, and not only Kinect, but also OAK-D, and give an overview how you can solve more complex tracking situations, for example, for immersive rooms or things like that. Then I'm going to pitch in and talk about DMX, ArtNet, and LED mapping on an intermediate level. So get you started with LED mapping or controlling a set of lights and so on. And when you lick the blood, then you can go to session 11, where Lucas Morgan, who's an excellent TouchDesigner developer from the United States, is going to talk about the software he developed in TouchDesigner GeoPix, which yeah, is kind of a professional lighting design and performance software, and it has a built-in pretty powerful pre-visualization. It's open source, and in that sense, the cheapest fully functional previs on the market, and it's fully built in TouchDesigner and fully customizable. And Lucas has a very nice way as well to explain things. Then the next session is again a new thing that we try. I'm super excited about that connection that Daniel Molnar gave us, and it's Yi Wei Hua, and she works for a big company in the field of art buying for media projects. And so we thought we set up something together, how to secure your rights in commercial projects from an artist perspective. So she's working for a long time in this field, which for me personally is kind of mysterious. But when you want to find out what are your rights as an artist, if you release artwork, if you work with companies, if they buy your artwork, we all know the gig economy. No? You play it, you get paid, and then it's done. Who knows what happens with it? But this is when you want to get serious about intellectual property, basically, and how you can secure your position and what long-time perspectives there may be. So this is, of course, not TouchDesigner specific. This is also open for VVV people or anyone else. But it's about visual media arts. Then we have Lake Heckermann, who's going to talk about extending the particle GPU component with custom velocity maps and other things that may be missing. Daniel Molnar comes back talking about using the Arduino with TouchDesigner and microcontrollers in general with a very nice example. He's going to go through how to apply them. And then we're going to come back to Lucas Morgan, who's talking about structuring a TD application for scalability. This is quite an expert topic where he shares his experiences from building GeoPics. What happens when you really want to build a real software in TouchDesigner? What are the challenges? How can you structure it? How can you actually do it so it becomes possible? So very excited about that. And then I'm going to finish off with projection mapping course, introducing the different possibilities of projection mapping in TouchDesigner. And you can buy these things individually, or you can buy the whole bundle. Of course, 20% off on the whole bundle. And then it will be more like a weekly course, and we kind of made sure that the sequence makes sense in a way. No? Introduction to GLSL becomes before advanced GLSL, not the other way around. Yeah, and I hope you will find this useful. And I would be happy to see you in especially my courses, of course. And with these words, the advertising ends, and I think we can all enjoy the social mingling and a cool drink at the bar with Markus from Derivative. And we're going to be back with the next presentation at 9, which comes from the good people from Bitwig. mit mir habe ich so viel gemeldet, das habe ich jetzt schon. Habe ich eine Synapse ausgebildet.
Sophia ist noch in der Liste.
Okay. Nicht mehr Namen. Okay. Wie viel seid ihr denn eigentlich?
Fast 30.
Dann geht's los. Okay, welcome back to the next presentation. I hope you had a nice social intermingling. I saw that some connections were made, which is, I think, the most important part about this meetup in our way too often virtual times. The next presentation is going to come from Bitwig, and they're going to talk about Bitwig and Bitwig Studio, which has had a new release recently. I'm going to leave it to them to explain the features. Bitwig was founded by 4 people in Berlin in 2009, and one of these persons is also here. It's Volker. Hello, Volker. Here there's also a few more Bitwiggers in the audience. This collaboration came because there is a new set of tools for TouchDesigner that will allow close collaboration with Bitwig. And that is a good opportunity to learn more about Bitwig. And we have PLACIDUS and JÖRG here, and they're gonna explain you what this all is about. A warm round of applause, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Placi, and thanks so much for inviting us, the NodeInstitute and Derivative, the TouchDesigner team, giving us this chance to, join a roundup, a meeting here. We're Berliners, we're from Berlin, and many team members are here, and maybe all the Bitwig team members can briefly come here and just show their face. There are more. I'm sorry, I didn't warn everyone, so yes, so don't fall, yeah. Yes, so yes, in total we're about 30 people, so you have almost a third of us here. Yeah, and shall we say what we do? Maybe we'll start here. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Elisa. I'm on the communications team.
I'm Lars, and I'm taking care of hardware integration and other things.
Hi, I'm Sophia, and I'm a developer.
Hello, I'm Volker. I'm also a software developer.
Hi, I'm Mia, and I'm taking care of artist relations and partnerships.
Hello, I'm Jörg. I'm a senior product expert.
Yes, and I'm Placi. I'm managing the company. Okay, thanks so much. Stefan already said that Volker and 4 other guys founded the company in 2009. In 2014, we launched version 1. Version 1 was, of course, very important for us after 4 years of development to go to market. Those were already the times of the internet, and it was much easier to launch a software product worldwide. We then had further updates in 2017 and 2019, and now most recently we launched version 5, and yesterday we launched version 5.0.10, which includes an extension for the integration with TouchDesigner. So I'll say a few words about how that came about. About a year ago, our artist relations team and Mia, we talk, of course, with a lot of artists that use our software, and some of those artists do live shows, and some of those artists that do live shows use TouchDesigner. So they were telling us, and I don't know who it was, but so Mia just said it was Atom TM, who was suggesting that we talk with a team of derivative, that they're great people. And that's what we did. And that was a year ago, roughly. And as a company, you have a lot of meetings, and you never know what comes out of the meetings that you have. So we left out of that meeting, and we're thinking, yes, maybe something will happen, but maybe nothing will happen. But and we're very happy to be here today because something happened. And that's TDBitwig that we now have. In this presentation now, I think we will, or Jörg will focus on the Bitwig side, and then at 10, Mark Hashimoto, who worked for the TouchDesigner side to write the TDBitwig modules, will then take over remotely, right, from California. Yes. Thank you so much. And I'll hand over to you.
Okay, yeah, much better. So maybe before I start and talking about the interface and the workflows, so I would like to know from you, who of you who has heard about Bitwig before? Can you? Oh, quite a few people, nice. And who has been using Bitwig already? Oh, very nice. I'm not sure if my colleagues count, if they also raised their hands. I'm not wearing my glasses, but yeah, so maybe some things I'm going to present, not going to be news for you, but a little bit of a recap. So let's start about talking what Bitwig is. So it's a DAW to produce and perform music. And for performing music, it comes with some handy features. For instance, it has plugin sandboxing, which avoids the app to crash when a plugin crashes, which is very nice. You can have more than one document open and swap documents easily, and so far, yeah, and so forth. And Bitwig has I would say, like a modular DNA in a way that you can manipulate really the sounds deeply. You can connect literally anything with anything, and you can go really deeply also into events, like be it notes or audio events in a clip. And what I've opened here is a demo song, so let me play it back just to get started. And you can see it's got two views here. It's got a linear view, linear approach, and also a non-linear approach. Right now I'm playing back the arranger here on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side there's a clip launcher where you can launch scenes or clips and just go without a fixed timeline. Or you can also have a mixture of both. So you can have a couple of clips or tracks playing back from the arranger, a couple of tracks playing back from the clip launcher. So you got a signal chain right here. So you have browser on the right-hand side. So Bitwig comes with more than 90 devices, so instruments, note effects, audio effects, and so on. Maybe that's enough for the introduction, and let's just make some music with Bitwig, and let's take a look at some of the features. So I've got an empty project which I loaded up here, and let me start with just creating a couple of tracks. So let me close the browser right here, and I prepared a couple of clips, so I don't program clips here on the fly, because I figured it's going to be too boring to watch. So as you can see, I hit the plus button here, and the browser is very smart because it's context aware. So I'm looking for a clip, and let's start with a little beat. So should be good enough. It's a little bit low, I don't know, but maybe it's okay. So I'm going to borrow the beat here and copy to the next track, and I try to make a bass out of it. Let's see how that works. So for that here, I hit the plus button again, and since it's an instrument track, so I'm getting offered a couple of instrument options here, and I think I'm going to go for a polysynth, and let's see how that sounds together. Not very convincing yet, so let's transpose it maybe 1 octave down here in the MIDI editor. Yeah, let's maybe extend this note a little bit and transpose this note up again. Let's see how that sounds. Okay, so let me borrow another clip which I prepared for this presentation. A second beat. And let's see where this is taking us. And not bad maybe as a foundation, but something is still a little bit wrong. There's this tom fill which is coming far too often here. And in order to make that more interesting and a little bit more sparse, I could copy the clip a couple of times, move it around, but there's a handy feature to make it even easier here on the left-hand side in the inspector section. I've got operators, so I can set a recurrence factor for these individual notes, and as you can see, can you see? Yeah. So I set it to 4 bars, and I want these marked notes only to play on the 4th iteration of the loop, as well as this crash or this cymbal right here. Going to do a similar thing and set it to play only on the 1st iteration of each loop to create just more variation. I'm going to mark this shaker right here, and I'm going to introduce a little bit of velocity spread to bring a little bit of randomness into the velocity. And in fact, I'm going to bring some randomness to the clave here. And I'm going to do a similar thing here with the bass, because this note here comes far too often. So I'm going to make it a 2-bar loop by also altering the operator right here. Yeah, that sounds more like what I had in mind. So let's continue with some more elements to make it more interesting, and let's pull up a synthesizer. Oops. So I loaded the clip, and by the way, if I load the clips, I save to the library here, you see they load also with track properties, and they load also with the devices I used when I created the clip. In this case, I've got a polymer synthesizer. Before we had the polysynths. The polymer synthesizer is a very flexible synthesizer where you can swap basically all of the modules. You've got a couple of oscillators you could pick from here, pulse, sine, triangle, whatnot, but I go for a wavetable. You can also pick from different filter models. So I selected a comp filter here, and you can also swap the envelopes. And I need to drink a little bit of water. Much better. So check how that sounds like. The index, of course, is static right now. want to bring in a modulator. So modulator is loaded here in Bitwig, and you got 42 modulators to pick from, all different kinds. Some of them are audio-driven. Got side chains, for instance. You got envelopes, you got LFOs, but you also got interface elements like buttons, or you can draw in steps, and you can manipulate any parameter in the device if you use them here for the device like I do right now. With version 5, I'm going to show you in a second, we also expanded the functionality and created track-based and also project-based modulators, so you can basically modulate anything with what you like there. And here, actually there is already a beat modulator I picked here. Let me just activate it. And it should be mapped to the index parameter here. Let's see how that sounds like. So I'm already bringing a little bit of movement into the sound. I could do a similar thing here for the comp filter. Just to make it a little bit more interesting. And these modulators are not limited to Bitwig devices. You can use them for any VST which you are using. If your favorite synthesizer happens to not feature an LFO, for instance, you can just add it, or an audio sidechain or whatnot. So let's use a project-based modulator to do a little bit audio side chaining right here. So I open the project modulator panel right here, and I'm going to pick an audio side chain. I'm going to swap over to the mix view, where you can see that here the clips, they have swapped for 90 degrees. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just use the bass drum from the first track as a device input. Let me let it run from the Legend 808 kit. I've got the kick here, and I'm just going to use it here with the mapping button and just going to map it right to the volume fader. So that the bass drum controls now very easily the volume of that synthesizer sound. And I feel my voice is fading. I was fearing that because I'm a little bit under the weather today. So let me move on fast so I don't talk so much. So let's move to the next track, and I'm going to add another element to the little track I'm throwing together, and that is a polygrid patch. So in fact, also the operator, which we've seen before, is also based on polygrid. And polygrid is like a modular toolbox where you can throw together your own, or you build together your own synthesizers. And Bitwig features 3 flavors of the grid. So polygrid for instruments. There's an effects grid to build your own audio effects, or also node grid to build your own node effects. So this is just a little, oh, it's not even plain. This is just a little synthesizer patch, which I just used and just threw into the mix. And let's patch together something really, really easy on an additional track, just to bring some more randomness to the music. And for that purpose, I'm going to borrow the clip from here without the instrument. I'm going to extend it and make it a little bit longer. Oops. Yeah, that should be enough. Close down here the this panel, and I'm going to use this FM4 synthesizer, which is 4 oscillators, frequency modulation. So I'm not going to go into details there too much, but let's make this a little bit more random, a little bit more interesting. So I click on the plus button here to open the browser again, and as you can see here in the signals chain, because it's before the instrument, it's offering me node effects. And what I'm looking for is a node repeat effect. And here it is. I'm going to set it to Euclid mode. Also play it back, maybe I solo the track. Not very interesting yet, but we're getting there, I promise. So let's throw in a little bit randomness here. So I'm going to pick a random modulator, and I'm going to have a random number of steps. And I'm going to use another random modulator to also change the rotation of this model. So it's changing and starting at different points. Yeah, maybe not like that. Maybe I leave that as it is. And so that is for the node triggers. And I'm going to throw in a node grid device. Whoops. Here it is. And let me close this down right here. And so far the node grid is empty. So you only have like a node input and a node output with a couple of parameters. You got a gate and the pitch and velocity and such. And what I'm going to throw in there is also a dice, once again. And I want the dice to be triggered by each gate, which is produced there. You can see it flashing here, also here in the dice device, and so something is arriving there. And let me use a pitch scaler first to make sure I can control the range of the notes I get there. And I want to follow it up by a pitch quantize, so the randomly generated pitches also fit to the music I'm making, and it hopefully makes some sense together. So let's connect that, and then I connect the pitch quantize here to the output of the output or node out module right here. So I think the song was somehow in A flat minor. So let's adjust that a little bit here. See if that makes any sense. And not too bad. In fact, let's also add a little bit of a return effect. So pick a convolution device here, maybe with a stock setting, but there's also a lot of halls to pick from. Maybe this one. Let's send something here. See how that, somehow it fits together. And I think, you know what? I think I'm going to stop right here because my voice is leaving me. Thanks for the attention. So, what questions do you have? Yes.
So sorry, we would like to do it through the microphone because we have the people in the stream.
What information do you get in TouchDesigner when you connect your program?
So I would ask you for a little bit of patience, because I'm also, with the TouchDesigner integration, I'm also learning myself a little bit. And so Mark is going to do the presentation right after me, who's been very much involved, and is going to be able to answer the questions much better than myself. Yes.
Hey, thanks for the presentation, firstly. This might be a bit like I just don't know enough about Bitwig. I've been looking at it for a while, but does it handle multi-channel audio and audio output? And is that something that's maybe in the pipeline? Or yeah.
Of course. So yeah, as much channels as your audio interface offers. You can. So I focused on MIDI here, so I didn't bring an audio interface, but of course you can use as many audio channels as you want.
Okay, and per track it's mono and stereo then?
Yeah, it's technically it's just stereo in Bitwig.
Cool, thank you.
Just answering to the questions before, but if you use a for a grid device, you can output so much channel you want.
Yeah, that brings me, because there's so much talking about grid, to a question that Daniel Molnar has asked, who can't be here tonight, would usually always be here, and he was asking, yeah, how is the grid integrated with the TD Bitwig, because he didn't find much on it on the documentation. Is that something I should ask Mark, or?
I think he would be the better guy to answer that question.
Then let's keep it.
Okay, let's take a note.
I have another grid question. Will it feature support for plugins, like maybe even clap plugins in the future?
Absolutely. So we were part of developing the clap plugins. So we were also the first ones to, or one of the first companies to offer support for that. And of course also VST and VST2, VST3 plugins are also supported.
But specifically the grid, will it be possible to load in a clap plugin into the grid, or will it just be contained in your preset device?
That is a very good question looking into the future. I cannot answer that right now. So at the moment it's not the case, so let's see.
Some more looking in the future? Yes, over here.
Hey, could you maybe quickly show how easy it is to access variables from external VSTs? With LFOs,
sure.
for example?
You mean like parameters from external
exactly,
VSTs?
Yes.
Sure. So let me load maybe a Diva device from Yuhe. So here it is, and whoops, move that out of the way. So you got a list of all the variables automatically pulled here, basically, into this Bitwig representation device of the VST. So, and you can, of course, automate any of that parameters, or also use it as a target for modulators or whatever. I don't know if that answers your question.
Is it maybe possible to see, for example, if you move the cutoff, which variable is moved?
Sure. So so it's
okay.
Automatically right here on top. So if you touch something here, so
cool.
it will populate it here on top of the list.
Thanks.
Do we have more questions? Do we have questions from the chat, Wieland? No. So it was a very good presentation.
Thanks.
Yeah, so thank you very much for coming over. I'm sure there will be more questions in the personal talks afterwards. We will be back at 10 o'clock with Mark Hashimoto and Jared Smith from Los Angeles, I guess. And in the meantime, we'll invite you for refreshments and more networking and chat. Thank you. So, thank you for your patience. We are back with maybe the last presentation. Maybe there will be a surprise after that. I don't know. The next presentation is going to come straight from Los Angeles. We're going to hear from Jared Smith, who's a software architect at Derivative, and Mark Hashimoto, who's a media artist who worked together with Jared and probably a few other people, I don't know, on the TDBitwig components. And they're going to tell us a bit more how we can integrate TouchDesigner with Bitwig to create even better audiovisual performances that our community is so popular with.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Mark Hashimoto, and today I'm going to be giving a brief high-level overview of the TDBitwig system, followed by a short demo project that we put together for this. So yeah, let's get started. So the TDBitwig system is composed of two parts, one of which in Bitwig is a controller extension, which you can add in the controller settings. Normally, you would add a controller, locate the derivative hardware vendor, and it exists right here, and you would press add. We have that set up currently, and then you're ready to configure the connection. On the TouchDesigner side, the TDBitwig system is a set of components, which I will give a short introduction to each. So the most important component in the system is the Bitwig main. It acts as the central communication hub between the controller extension in Bitwig, and it is here where you'll kind of configure your connection settings. The connection is run over OSC, so similarly to any OSC-based connection, you'll provide it an IP and a port number. Cool. So here we have in our Bitwig project a simple audio file, audio project set up here. I'll play it for you. And we have a cute little visualizer that we've made, which represents the incoming note information for each of our tracks. We have 7 tracks available to us, and you can see each track corresponds to a different register, with track 1 at the lowest, and with each following track a slightly higher register. Cool. So I'll just leave this running. So the next component I'd like to introduce is the Bitwig song. Much of the design for the TDBitwig system was inspired by TD Ableton. So if you're familiar with that component set, this should feel pretty at home for you. So the Bitwig song component is responsible for controlling the Bitwig transport. So all timeline based. Frank, okay. Yeah, so that includes play, stop, restart. You can control the tempo and time signature, the looping, and you can launch cues and scenes. So here you'll notice we have all the available scenes in our Bitwig project. Kind of going down the list, we have a component called the project remotes. The project remotes component is responsible for communicating with the Bitwig project remote pages. There's a correspondence with the 8 parameters that exist in this component with the 8 remote control parameters that exist in a given project remotes page. You can see currently we have all of these available remote control pages to us. The component is able to select any of these given pages. I can scroll around and the parameter labels and their values will automatically match the selected page. So you'll notice if I nudge this value in Bitwig, you'll see the corresponding parameter in TouchDesigner change. And all of these parameters are bidirectional, so I can equally adjust the parameter slider in Touch, and you'll notice the Bitwig knob follows. Cool. So next we have the Bitwig track component. Currently, the way that we've set up our TouchDesigner network is that each of these annotate columns corresponds to one track. So all of the objects belonging to a track will exist in the corresponding track column. So let's take a look at the Bitwig track component. Like the name would suggest, it is able to select a given track and perform a number of actions and provide bidirectional control of given track parameters. So you'll see we are currently selected on track 3. We can change its volume, its pan, arm, solo, mute. And again, these are bidirectional. So if I adjust the volume in the Bitwig UI, you'll see the volume parameter change. You also have control over your effect sends for a given track.
You're not playing right now in Bitwig.
Okay. Let's play. Up, and we have a little feedback. Yeah, and I'll let this play while I go down the line. So next we have our Bitwig clip slot component. It is able to control playback for any given clip slot that belongs to a track. So we are still on track 3. Normally, the workflow in Bitwig would look like clicking these clip slots, which each correspond to different scales or melodies that we've written out. And this same behavior can be emulated from the clip slot component by choosing this drop-down menu. It gives you all the available clip slots for every existing scene in your project. I can choose the A minor clip slot and launch it. Our F major launch, and you'll notice that the Bitwig UI follows. So let's go back to our main sequence. So in addition to being able to launch, you can also select that clip slot in the Bitwig UI. You can stop or record that clip slot. And that about wraps up the clip slot. Next, we have our Bitwig clip follower. This is a beta component, so it's not included in the official component set, but it's something that we created with the intention that it might bring some utility for users. So what the clip follower does is it will display whatever the current playing clip in a track is. So currently we are playing the sequence main clip for track 3. And you'll notice that its name is represented here in this table cell. So if I change that to sequence A, you'll notice the name in the table cell will follow. All right, next we have the Bitwig note component. So this component will display any of the node events that occur for our track. It's a little hard to see right now, but I can, similarly to the MIDI in shop, I can clear our cache, and we'll see only the incoming nodes since the last clear has occurred. There's a number of ways in which we can display this channel information. So currently this gives us the most recent node events. We can also view all 128 pitches from C-2 to G8. And we also have control over how the pitches are represented in the namespace. So currently we have the pitch names, but you can also choose for those channel names to represent the pitch indices. And I will leave that to index. Okay. So next we have the Bitwig remotes track component. So similarly to the remotes project, it controls the remotes page for the track context, which we can view in the Bitwig UI here. Currently, this remote controls page is mapped to enable or disable the given instrument device that we have on this track. Currently it's set to piano. I can disable that and enable the synth. You'll notice that the TouchDesigner parameter values follow, so I can switch that off from touch, enable the piano. This is currently set for all of our track remote pages for all of the tracks in our Bitwig. So if I unmute these, I can switch which instrument is activated.
Pitches and name them by, you turned off those two.
Pitch names? Okay. So this is kind of cool. You can, through Touch's functionality, select multiple track remote pages and control all the track remotes in Bitwig at the same time. So. Okay. So let's switch this back to our synth. And following that, it's a good time to talk about the remotes device component. So same as project remotes, same as track remotes, there is a concept of device remote pages that exist at the device level. Currently, we have selected, this is the wrong one. Currently, we have selected the phase 4 for our track 3, which we can view here. Let's enable it. And you can view its project or its device remotes here. Similarly, we can select any of the pages which exist on this device via this drop-down menu. So staying on the main, we can adjust and we can also adjust these values from touch.
On the nodes, both of those toggles need to be on. Turn them on.
Okay. Great. Let's bring it back to our piano. Okay. Next, that gives kind of basic overview of all of the main components. So we can talk about some workflows on how to modulate values from TouchDesigner. So here we have a simple chop exporting setup. It is currently doing a lookup on these sine waves, and their export targets are each of our Bitwig track components corresponding to tracks 1 through 7 in our Bitwig project. They are currently controlling the volume parameters. So if I enable this export and unmute all of our tracks, you'll see all of the volume faders in Bitwig kind of follow this sinusoidal pattern, which is a fun little dynamic mix. Cool. Let's disable that. Equally, we can also modulate values from TouchDesigner using Python expressions. So we have our effect sends right here. This is just a simple example of how you can, programmatically set certain Bitwig parameters from TouchDesigner. These are currently mapped to the project remotes. The values of these remote controls are currently mapped to the FX sends for our tracks 1 through 7. So if I adjust the parameter for our FX1, we can match that value for all of the other 6 tracks available to us. You'll notice them changing in the project remotes page, as well as the FX send knob for all of our tracks. And we can switch between how we want to set these values. So currently this is a reference mode, an expression mode. We can non-destructively switch to an export mode. So currently this chop export is set to affect these parameters here. If I enable this export, these will match the values of this chop channel. And if I disable, it will restore its previous configuration. So if I leave this on, unmute, you might be able to hear the kind of dynamic feedback levels that we're getting on all of these 7 tracks. Okay, cool. So next, I'll talk about an auxiliary component that we made. It doesn't communicate with Bitwig in any way, but we thought it might be helpful to have when constructing TDBitwig projects. This one is called the Bitwig Select, and the Bitwig Select component allows you to easily grab the output chop of any given Bitwig component in your project. So the idea behind that was you set your TouchDesigner TDBitwig project up, you make all your selections to each of your Bitwig objects of interest, and whenever you want to say, like, grab the data coming from that component for using for your visual patches, you can use the Bitwig Select to easily grab those. So the select starts with a filter by the comp type. So you'll see all of the component types are represented in this dropdown. Let's say I'm interested in a track. I can click this drop-down menu and it will display all the available Bitwig tracks in our TouchDesigner project. Or I can do our clip slot and it will show me all the available clip slots. Cool. It also allows you to open the parameter window for the selected Bitwig component if you want to make any adjustments to its parameter values. We've kind of put this in a nice interface. So slot 4, 5, okay, you get the idea. Okay, so yeah, and now I'll kind of talk about the small visual setup that we made, just to give an example of how the information from these components might be used. So let's go into here. So yeah, right here we have 7 clones, each represent information for a given track. So let's go inside track 3. The start of our network begins with a Bitwig select. We are selecting the note component for track 3. The output shop of this select gets fed into an event shop, which creates an event for every note that gets activated. It has several channels. Its index channel represents the pitch index of the note event. The time channel represents the duration for how long that note event has been occurring. And yeah, those 2 channels are used to kind of set up a basic instancing render. So we are using the time for how long the note is on, and using that to represent our Y position, so that you'll notice in the visualizer, the longer the notes are on, the further down the screen they'll move. We are grabbing the index, the pitch index here, which we are using to get the pitch name, as well as do a color lookup. We have a small ramp here, which will represent pitches from the lowest register to the highest register. So currently track 3 is kind of somewhere in the lower middle range, and you'll see most of its notes are around like a yellow greenish hue. So yeah, lots of chop wrangling, and we have our instance shop. It has color information, RGBA, the pitch index, and our Y position. We also have another Bitwig select component, which is grabbing the track component. We are particularly interested in the mute value. So if the track is currently muted, the instancing setup is not rendered. So as I unmute these other tracks, we'll see the rest of those instances coming through. And that about wraps up this summary of the visual demo. One last component I'd like to touch on briefly is the TDBitwig package. So you'll notice that right here, and similarly to TD Ableton or the widget system, this is how you can bring your old TDBitwig projects up to date with the newest versions. And I won't show how that's done right now. Cool. And so one last thing to briefly mention is the TDBitwig system currently does not support any like audio routing, but just to show how that might be done, we can go into the grid. So we have our grid here. There is a context of grid nodes in the I/O. The one that would be applicable here is the audio out. Once that's brought into the grid, you would grab it from TouchDesigner using like your basic audio device in shop. And there's different ways you can go about those routings depending on if it's intra-device routing or between device routing. For Mac, there is the black hole, which is a good solution for inter-loopback audio routing. For PC, there is the RME interfaces, which support similarly like robust loopback. Black Hole says that they're coming out with a Windows version. That hasn't happened yet, so maybe send them some emails and they'll maybe expedite that. So yeah, that concludes this kind of brief introduction to the TDBitwig system and its component set. Thank you for listening, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mark and Jared. After all this ghost in the machine speaking, can we see your faces? Because after all, we're a community meeting and we would like to know who we're talking to.
Yeah, 1 second.
Booting up avatar. Hi, Mark. Hi, nice to see you.
Hey.
Hi, Jared. Nice to see you, Billy. Oops. Yeah, thank you very much for this introduction. I have a quick question that I tried to get answered before already, but everybody said you're the guys to ask. It comes from Daniel Molnar, who, by the way, is a supporter. He bought a supporter ticket, which we usually would expect big companies to do, but actually it's always the same 3 or 4 guys, and they're not a big company at all. So big companies take notice, and thank you, Dan, very much. And Dan is asking, and I mean, he's working a lot with TouchDesigner, but he's also a musician, so he's qualified to ask the question. And he says, one of the most interesting aspects for TouchDesigner develops in this Bitwig integration is the grid. What is the best way to interface with that system through TDBitwig? Because you couldn't find any reference to the grid in the docs.
Yes, correct. Well, first of all, TDBitwig is all OSC based. So it's not technically part of the architecture that you would use to communicate with grid and chops, essentially. And so you've got to go through the, well, here, and I can show a really quick example. Like, so the other thing to take note of is we're working on a Windows box right now, and my audio device is set to Wasapi so that it works with Zoom. If I was on it, so the way I have it set up here at the office is I use an ASIO driver in Dante and 2 computers. And then in Touch, you would have Dante, and then you'd have X number of channels. And then you would be able to go into the grid. Share this one. Oh, I'm not sharing? No. Let me share my screen. So you would go into Polygrid, and if you wanted to send an LFO to Touch, sorry, oops. For example, grab an LFO, and then go to I/O, scroll over here, find hardware out, and then just pipe this in here and pick the channel that you want to send it to. And what you'll see, if we had Dante set up, is you'd see a long list of all the channels that you would send out, and then those would go to touch using an audio device in. And you would set this to be the correct kilohertz. So I'm generally working at 96, and then your sound card on the Dante, everything needs to be set to 96 K, and then your connection would be there, and it'd be amazing high speed, low latency connection for everything from CV data, so LFO, gate information, pitch information, all the way up to high resolution audio. So that's how the pipeline works as well. It's difficult. Well, let me try this. If I go to Dante here, this is what you're going to see on the touch side. You're going to see, like, in this case, 16 channels of audio. What we're doing as well in the experimental build, which will come out, I hope, fairly soon, is that this indexing will be much more clear, and I'm going to build an audio device component that's going to sort of be similar to the workflow in Bitwig for creating multiple outputs. So like in my setup, let's say I've got 16 mono channels of Dante. You're going to go add mono, add mono, add mono, add mono, all the way through up to 16. And then these you would route to out Dante out 1, Dante out 2, Dante out 3. And then on the touch inside, you're going to have the same mapping. And it's going to be possible to save those mappings out with the new component. So it'll be easy, because like right now when I'm working with friends on this kind of workflow, it's difficult to go from computer to computer, like from Mac to Windows, from an RME box to Dante, from a built-in black hole device to, and so on. And so we're going to kind of smooth out that process. So grid and chops will be communicating over audio rates for controller data and for audio. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, should we show the, maybe you can also like control patches in your grid via like the these pages. So any of these values are controllable from your page. You can map them in your page, and then you can bring in the corresponding Bitwig remotes component, and you can adjust these more like CV context like values in the grid.
Yeah, so you're using Bitwig to kind of control, they're using TDBitwig, TouchDesigner Bitwig, to control Bitwig via OSC, and then the real rich data is going to pass out through the audio devices. Any other questions?
Before we ask the audience here, Wieland, I think we have a very interesting question in the chat.
One question from the chat, but it's more related to the Bitwig crew itself. So I'm gonna postpone it until my own question got answered. Just asking about the install process, because the install process for TDBitwig is kind of a, let's say, painful way of like dropping TD Max projects in there and even having to use TD Max Max for life for everything. So how exactly, I think you showed it in the beginning, but it was very brief. So I just wanted to ask again, how do I enable and install TDBitwig in TouchDesigner? And
yeah, so with Bitwig version, the one that was just released, 5.0.10, that you can download off the website now, included with that version. So you don't need to download any extra file or so on. You just go to add controller, go to the hardware vendor, which is derivative. I'll just do it from scratch. This is what, this is what your controller's area will look like when the file's empty. And you'll notice over here we disconnected. But you just go to derivative, TouchDesigner, and add, and then you should be good. And if you're not, well, yeah, we're probably good.
You're muted.
Oh, I'm muted. Yeah. So it worked. Yeah. So we killed the controller and we added it back, and it worked. So this is the Java extension built with their SDK that Mark built. And it just communicates with Touch via OSC. On the Touch side, if you were in an empty file, you would just grab a main component. So you go into the palette, go to main, or go to find TDBitwig, grab Bitwig main, drag it into your file, and then it would work. You only want one Bitwig main per environment, but that's what this is here.
Thank you for the very brief and short explanation. And we have a question from the audience.
Hello, Jared and Marco. Thank you first for amazing work. And I just have one small question about this repeated MIDI notes. If you manage to solve this problem.
Yes. Okay. So your question is, when MIDI notes are right up against each other, for example, if I make a new clip and I go 1, 2, 3, and I loop this, because they're right up against each other, the note value will stay on. You're not going to get a new event. The callbacks, the note device has callbacks. Do these callbacks fire?
Not if the channel doesn't change.
Yeah. So good question. The current solution is to go like this. And I understand that that's not ideal, but we don't have a good solution. But we're definitely making a list of things to tackle, and that's definitely on the list. So that's the best I can do.
One more small question. Like in TD Ableton was a very cool function to send MIDI notes to Ableton. So is it
yeah,
possible?
so that's not supported in the SDK.
It is.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, the reason you can play notes live, but just because the rate that the extension runs at is much lower frequency than audio data, the timing wouldn't always be very accurate when you're sending incoming note values over OSC. TD Ableton has a feature which allows you to actually write clip note data rather than, which you can then play back. But it really only records those notes. And so that's something we are leaving open for like a future update where you can actually record clips from TouchDesigner, but currently we're holding off from live note input.
Well, yeah, if it's possible in the SDK, meaning we don't have to ask Bitwig for anything, then I'm sure we can expose that in the medium term. And then with the caveats that it's not going to be as tight, obviously, as like as it being inside Bitwig. But yes, if it's possible in the short order, we would do it. Otherwise, yeah, if it requires changes to on the Bitwig side, obviously that's going to take a lot longer and then TBD. So yeah.
Yeah, maybe a bit egoistic question from the perspective of the NodeInstitute. I mean, the thing that was holding us back a bit to do more on TD Ableton is that you need the biggest and most expensive version of Ableton to run it. How is that with Bitwig? Is there like, that's probably to the Bitwig crew, is there like a free way into the program? And do I need like some wild, expensive version of Bitwig to be able to work with TDBitwig? Or if we wanted to make a course, what could we offer it to people without having to spend money except on our course?
Yes, you have to wire the money to us that you get. The extensions, the TouchDesigner extension in Bitwig Studio is in all versions of Bitwig Studio. There's small, medium, large. We start with $100 or euros. It goes to 200, and then the big version is 400. And all those versions have all extensions included. There's also a version that we bundle with partners, and if you prove to be a very good partner, maybe we will bundle an 8-track version with you, which you can then also use, which is free. So, okay, I changed my mind, or we changed our mind. You can have all the money you take for yourself, and we will bundle 8-track with your course members.
That's a nice offer. So expect TDBitwig courses coming up. Do we have more questions from the audience? No, we already have a volunteer to be the instructor. Of course.
I've never seen TouchDesigner before today, so I'm curious about what kind of sensors or inputs I could connect to, for example, let's say capture the movement of a performer across a stage like a dancer to then trigger something in Bitwig like a reverb or something like that. It might be a real basic question, but I'm curious, since this seems to be the specialty of TouchDesigner, that it displays things, but I'm assuming also can take some kind of input to.
Yeah, so this is if you just type in Google TouchDesigner interoperability, you'll get a page with everything that, well, hopefully up to date, everything that we support. So obviously SDI cameras, a lot of different types of IP-based cameras, network-based cameras, lots of different video codecs, lots of different streaming technologies, DMX-based protocols for things like lights, and lots of different audio stuff able to use Bitwig, environmental scanners and tracking. Like there's a long list of different things. Like you might have heard of the Connect, or the what's popular. There's a bunch. The Connect's probably the most popular. Okoyu, which is like a laser scanner that lets you do sort of one-dimensional scans of rooms to find if there's people or things breaking the laser. A lot of LiDAR scanners, Ouster and various ones like that. Yeah, virtual reality, we support a bunch of different virtual reality devices. A lot of different network protocols, which opens you up to a wide array of different, almost anything, and Python for that matter. If there's something that we don't support, often you can find things from the community that are supported through the community. We have a plugin to Unreal Engine, lasers, and yeah, the list goes on. So OpenCV devices, yeah, so a wide range of different things, and we're always adding. Seems like every month or two there's a new device added, so that's something we try to keep up to date with the latest stuff.
So I also have a question from the chat from the YouTube stream, sorry about that, more directed for the Bitwig team, but it fits quite nicely in the interoperability topic. The question is, did they consider a sort of headless, UI-less approach so it can be used as an audio engine for permanent installations in an optimized way, quite similar to the way the touch engine can be used in other software right now?
Is it on? Yeah. This is theoretically possible. This is just something that we would need to support and develop, and there's a extensive roadmap of things that we want to do, and I'm not sure, yes, when we should do that or if we will do that, but theoretically it's of course possible. Volker, do you want to add anything there? Okay.
It's also the question of what the user wants to do with that. So if he wants to run it on a server, like there's also the question of the use case, like does the user want to run that on a server, or why does he want to run it as a headless application? It should work also quite well just running it normal as Bitwig Studio.
So I think I can jump in and answer the question, because one of the main problems with TouchDesigner is it is a video platform first. So there's stuff like running at 60 FPS and also having frame drops resulting in audio glitches, which are very unpleasant. So being able to just, in kind of a native way, being able to run a very solid build audio engine in the background without having to open like all of the UI stuff, but going more like the opposite way of integrating TouchDesigner into other stuff, but being able to integrate, for example, a TDBitwig, like Bitwig as an audio engine into TouchDesigner is like a sub-process, would be quite a game changer.
Okay, so that basically that the UIs are not competing in terms of graphic performance.
Because the way it happens right now is quite often people will run Ableton for their larger installations as the audio engine, and TouchDesigner really just like triggers the clips. So being able to get rid of all the UI that you don't actually need in the end would definitely be a big added value proposition, as you say in business speak.
I understand. Yeah, technically that would be definitely possible. And if people are interested in that, they should get in touch with us and tell us about what they want to do.
We'll put it on the list.
I feel that still, sorry if I jump back to the last question, because Jared was scrolling over the Arduino spot, but you were asking about sensors, right? So basically any low complexity sensor that is available can be hooked up through an Arduino, can be hooked up to TouchDesigner, and you can immediately start working with the values coming from that. Of course, we heard about Kinect and all these higher level things, and there's also very expensive stage tracking systems that it can connect to, but on the more DIY end, like through Arduino, basically anything. Like there's almost nothing imaginable that you can't hook up through that way.
And I'd like to make an addition to the question you had before, that question. Yes. About the different tiers of Bitwig Studio, the grid is only available in the high tier. So if you want to teach the grid, it's not available in the lower tiers. That's what I want to say.
That's maybe something to learn from TouchDesigner, because it's very easy for us to teach it to anyone, because there's always the free version, which has its limitations, so it's difficult to do VR things or like huge resolutions, but the entryway and the way to teach it is ridiculously easy, because just, install it, let's go. But everybody makes their own choices, of course. Another question from Stanislav?
It's not a question, but I done done some movie about showing how we can use media pipe to control Bitwig over TDBitwig. So theoretically, it's a good example for the question.
Yeah, media pipe is like a hardware-less tracking system. It basically works with any webcam. Now I maybe have like a, yeah, maybe I shouldn't ask, but I'm interested, like, of course, everybody knows Ableton. TD Ableton connection is old, and lots of people use it, either to use Ableton to timeline their TouchDesigner project, because the timeline in TouchDesigner is questionable, or, as we heard, they use it as an audio pipeline. How would it compare? Like, if I have not used any of those softwares, would I be able to use Bitwig also as a replacement for the timeline for TouchDesigner? And what, I'm not going to ask this to Bitwig team, what would you recommend me to go for, the people who have tried both? Which is maybe also a question to Mark and Jared, who obviously have used both.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, so we didn't show automation in Bitwig because it was just maybe too deep, but Bitwig has a timeline if you're showing the screen here. And Mark, why don't you do it? But you can add automation channels to clips or to the timeline, and therefore animate over time on their very nice timeline editor. And so if you were, say, if you keyframed a ramp up and down, like, for example, here he's going to add a automation lane, which is that hamburger.
That's right.
And then, yeah, so you can add a channel, like an automation channel, attach that to a parameter, and you're animating the mute. So
Yeah.
it's just an integer. Well, even the mute, so you're turning it on and off over time. You can get very detailed in their nice animation editor, automation editor, and then you can control a parameter with that, and then that parameter will be sent to touch. So long story short, yes, it's a very, even if you weren't doing audio, Bitwig is a very, very cool opportunity to use a queue-based automation engine if you were animating a theatrical show with a bunch of different clips and so on.
So I could use this view to control scene changer, for example, and wouldn't even play any music.
Yeah, for sure. So if we go into edit, like, let's just go to the project level, which you remember there's a bunch of these guys, right? So if I right click on this guy, add automation lane, and then scope it. How do I scope? Not sure how to scope it. I don't know how to do it, but at any rate, you can animate any parameter. So, and those automation lanes can exist both in a clip or along the big long timeline in Bitwig. And then, yeah, you could animate DMX lights. If you had a DMX lighting rig, you wouldn't need to be using any audio at all, and you'd have all the fine controls of a beautiful timeline editor that Bitwig has. So yes, it's very, very cool. And another like random idea that I don't even know if it's true, so it'd be nice to find this out, is like, because audio, a lot of times you're controlling lasers with audio files, can Bitwig become a laser controller? And I think the answer is true, but I don't know. But like, that's the kind of thing that we're expecting TouchDesigner people to use Bitwig for.
Nice. Do we have any more questions from the audience? No, we don't. Yes, we have.
First, thank you very much for the presentation. I just have a question about the Bitwig node component that was demonstrated before. At the moment, you showed that it reported all the notes that they were being played. Can it also report, for example, if you're playing with an MPE controller on an MPE device, can also report back to TouchDesigner this MPE information at the moment?
Sorry, I don't know what an MP device is.
For example, you're playing with an MPE controller and you have an MPE capable synth in Bitwig.
What's MP though? Sorry, I don't know what MP is.
It's note expressions, expressions per note. So we have various parameters per note that are available per note that go beyond what MIDI does.
Ah, okay. So this is an expanded specification of MIDI or node information, which I guess is like, is that like timbre, pressure, etc.?
Yes.
Is that available in the SDK?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look into it.
Noted. Yeah, we'll put it in our notes. No, I don't think we're exposing it, but we can. Yeah, so we'll look into that.
Okay, cool.
So now we know what NP is. Thank you for that. Any more questions from the audience? Then, Mark and Jared, thank you very much for this presentation. Bitwig, thank you very much for being here and bringing these two worlds together. We're also thanking the audience in the stream. We're going to be back with another TouchDesigner Roundtable in a month. I'm still waiting for invitations to the next cool location that we can check out and introduce the community to. So if you're watching and you want to invite us, we have very open ears. It was very great to be at the Sprehalle today. Thank you, Anthony, for inviting us. Thank you, Wieland and Timo, for making the tech possible. We're gonna finish the stream now, and then there's gonna be a surprise presentation, which is only for the people in this room. So stay tuned. Bye-bye stream, bye-bye internet. And see you the next time. Thank you very much.